ADD, attention deficit disorder, was a name given to this thing. It used to be called minimal brain dysfunction before then, by the American Psychiatric Association with DSM-3, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 1980. That's what I trained on. 1987, for God knows what reason, they changed the name to ADHD. So it used to be ADD with hyperactivity or ADD without hyperactivity. And they changed the name to ADHD to sort of lump everybody together. The problem is half the people who have this disorder are never hyperactive. And so it was very confusing. And then 1994, they changed the name again to AD/HD, highlighting half the people who have this are never hyperactive. So, the names are not scientific. Let's just be super clear about this. There's no biology to this. A group of psychiatrists get together and they vote based on what they think the best evidence is, and often it's sort of silly. Like, we lost Asperger's this time. Everybody now, whether you're Elon Musk and high-functioning autistic, gets the same diagnosis as someone who's in a developmental center that can never live independently. I mean, it's just bizarre. When I first started imaging, I'm like, oh, it's not one thing based on imaging. And if we look at your brain, I'll be able to tell you. So type 1 is classic ADHD, short attention span, distractibility, disorganized for time and space. So we didn't talk much about that one, but your room, your desk, your book bag, trouble with organization. People with ADD tend to be late or just right on time because they actually don't start getting ready to go until, oh my God, I'm late. Not being able to multitask is very male brain thing as opposed to an ADD thing. Disorganization, 4 is procrastination. You put things off.
I do that.
Until you're mad or somebody else is mad at you. And then 5 is impulse control. You say things you probably shouldn't say or do things probably shouldn't do. And it's like the break in your brain is vulnerable. And I think those are the 5 things. And if you have 3 out of 5, you probably do have it. And it sounds like for you, somebody should look at your brain. It's like, how do we know unless we look, right? It's like one of the themes I live by.
And what would you see in a brain scan of a brain with ADHD versus a healthy brain?
So often healthy at rest and drops with concentration, especially in your prefrontal cortex, front third of your brain, an area called the basal ganglia where dopamine works, and your cerebellum. So healthy at rest, drops when you concentrate. We need to fix that. And you can fix it with exercise. You can fix it with certain stimulating supplements. And sometimes medication can be incredibly helpful. But the problem is what I saw, because I'm a child psychiatrist and an adult psychiatrist, but about half the patients we have at Amen clinics have ADD of one form or another. And what I found, there's classic, short attention span, distractibility, hyperactivity, impulse control issues. There's inattentive ADD, never really hyperactive or terribly impulsive, but trouble performing, trouble with focus. I have a child with both of those types. Type 3 is over-focused ADD. The problem is not that you can't pay attention, it's you can't shift your attention. You end up to get stuck on things. And because you're organized, that tends to be the one exception is type 3. But these people also tend to be argumentative, oppositional. If things don't go their way, they get upset, and they can hold on to grudges. And their addiction of choice tends to be things that calm their brain down, whether it's alcohol or marijuana. Type 4 is limbic ADD. Their emotional brain works too hard, and they tend to see the world through dark glasses. They have the 8 hallmark ADD traits plus sort of mild depression. Type 5 is temporal lobe. ADD, often from a head injury. One or both of their temporal lobes hurt, so mood instability, irritability, temper stuff. 6 I'm famous for. It's made it to movies. It's called The Ring of Fire, where the brain is not low in activity, it's high in activity. It's working way too hard, often due to inflammation. And type 7 is anxious ADD. And it's their level of anxiety that gets them places on time, but they have to work so much harder than their colleagues.
And all of these are rooted in genetics?
Some is rooted in trauma, but ADD is very genetic, right? It's so genetic that if I see an ADHD child and I don't see it at all in their mom's side or their dad's side, I'm looking at the kid to see if he looks like their parents. I mean, it's literally that genetic. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I could identify it in my family tree. I mean, I'm not qualified to.
But it can also be caused by a concussion. And so, if you come to see me, one of the things we're going to ask you 5 or 6, 7, 10 times, have you ever had a brain injury? Have you ever fallen out of a tree, off a fence, dove into a shallow pool? Have you ever had a concussion playing sports, a car accident?
I look forward to getting my brain scanned. It'll be super interesting. You'll have me, right? We can do this?
I'm so excited.
Yeah, good.
Can I talk about the 5 hallmark symptoms of ADD and you tell me which ones you have? I mean, there are more. The diagnostic criteria includes 18, but I think of one, it's short attention span, but not for everything. It's short attention span for regular, routine, everyday things, schoolwork, homework, paperwork, chores. For things that are new, novel, highly stimulating, or frightening, people with ADD can pay attention just fine because they have their own intrinsic dopamine. Love is a drug, especially new love is a dopamine drug. So if you love your teacher, we're going to want to please them. And so you do fine in that class. But your attention span is erratic. And that's what fools people because they're like, no, but I'm interested. I heard President George W. Bush say this, and he said, no, I did well in the classes I was interested in. And I'm like, not another ADD president, right? We just came off of Bill Clinton, who clearly had impulse control issues. So does that resonate with you?
Sure. The things that I'm interested in, I can be completely obsessed by. The things I'm not interested in are more challenging. But to me, that just isn't that everybody. And I think in reflecting on that, like I've made some pretty big life decisions about career in the past where I was choosing a career path that really wasn't what I should have been doing. And I have a huge capacity for persevering and determination. And I could force myself to, do the work that I wasn't interested in. But it becomes very exhausting. And I was a lawyer for a long time, and I have many memories of being in the law firm and trying to force myself to write these briefs and motions and do discovery and all the stuff that you do as a litigator, and looking around and realizing that my colleagues seemed much more interested in this than me. And I just thought everybody was suffering through this in the same way that I was, rather than the truth, which was I was this round peg trying to jam myself into a square hole.
Yeah, that you didn't love it. And if you have ADD, one of the things I tell all my ADD patients is find something you love that you can make money at, right? I mean, too often people go, find things you love that you're then dependent on other people. Mm-hmm. That's prescription for misery. The second symptom is distractibility. You see too much, you feel too much, you sense too much. It's like the world comes at you quickly. And so you want to sit down and read a book, but then you get distracted by the email or by your phone or because you're hungry or something.
But also, isn't that everybody?
No. My best friend in medical school had ADD, and I loved him dearly. He graduated at the top of our class. I was second. He was first, but he was my partner, so I was proud of him. And just so distracted. And was funny to sort of watch it.
I don't feel like I'm a distracted person, but I do feel like I need to be doing one thing at a time. And as long as I just have this one thing that I'm doing, like I'm okay, I can focus, I can, even when I don't feel like doing it, I can kind of overcome that, override it and do it. Where I get into trouble is when I wake up and now my life is very full. There's lots of things happening and I start to think about all the things that I have to do and it becomes very overwhelming very quickly and I get stressed and anxious and that gets translated into just being an aggravated person and, being unpleasant to be around. But left to my own devices, if I can I like to go all in on one thing, disappear, complete it, and then I'm open for the next thing.